practice groups are. And then we'll start with Donegal presentation, which is the region that we're featuring today. After that, we are going to have some interventions from a few experts in the room. Actually, we had someone else joining today, but unfortunately, she got sick last minute. So we'll have a few experts, but not too many today, just because of this. So we'll have a discussion with experts in the room where you can also just share your questions if you have any. And after that, we're just going to open the floor and try to open the discussion more to everyone in the room here to just have this space for peer learning, especially because we know there's a lot of regions in the room today. And then we'll just do a feedback survey at the end, so you can just give us some information on how you've experienced this session, as we're trying a new format for this week. Okay, so let's move on to this check-in. Next one, actually, next slide. So I'm going to ask you to, in the chat, don't send it yet, but in the chat, just type like, what is the first word that comes when you see these three pictures? So I'm going to ask you to write one and the word that comes to your mind when you see these pictures. And in like 1 minute, we're all going to send the chat messages at the same time. So let's just give you a quick, like a few seconds to think about this. What is the word that comes to your mind when you see these pictures? No yet, not yet. But I'm gonna type my example. Wait. So it would be something like this. Okay, I see already some responses, but the idea. Okay, great. And then I'm gonna do. Okay, so maybe just everyone can hit 10, since I already see you all sharing. I'm gonna have mine. Okay, stereotypes about environmental change. Very interesting, actually. I would have never come up with this, but this is amazing. Draw agriculture, challenge, life, poverty, food security, yes. Okay. Any other thoughts coming into the chat? Otherwise, I think we can move on to the next one. Next slide, please, Sylvia. Yep. So the next question I have for you is, what are the top 2 challenges that your region is facing using land and producing food? So top 2 challenges related to land use and food systems, basically, that are present in your region at the moment. And you can just send them as you think about this now in the chat. Soil degradation, drought and heat waves, drought and lack of irrigation, nutrient management, high temperatures, precipitation, coastal erosion, monocultures, irrigation, droughts. Okay. Water scarcity and agricultural droughts seems to be like the most common, I would say. It is good to know like what challenges you're facing like in your region, so that I think in the discussion this might pop up as well. Loss of biodiversity, weather extremes, high temperatures, drought, water management. Okay, good. Well, thank you for sharing. So just briefly to introduce the innovation practice groups for those of you who haven't maybe joined any past session on this. Innovation practice groups are spaces, dynamic spaces for mainly for regions, but all the stakeholders that we're trying to target. And these are just spaces for knowledge sharing, for you to peer exchange, maybe share some of your experiences, sense check any plans that you're working on, maybe exchange on best practices. This is really like the essence of the innovation practice groups. It's just for us to enable a space where regions can interact with other stakeholders and learn from their regional experiences happening across Europe and beyond, I'd say. So moving on to the next one, I just want to have a quick look at the timeline. So we started the innovation practice groups with the first session in October, where we had our consortium or our kickoff meeting. Sorry, oh, Elaine, you have your hand up.
Sorry, yes. my mistake. Clumsy fingers. Sorry.
That's okay. No worries, but you can always jump in.
No, I'm sorry.
So I was saying we had this kickoff meeting with our P2R regions in October, and we asked them to give us some of the challenges and needs that they have identified in the regions, so that we could try to bring as much as possible to the discussions related to these challenges that they are facing. So the first week of IPGs was in March, and you can see more of this in the mirror boards that we're going to be using today, because we have kept the same mirror boards for the 3 weeks of IPGs that we're going to be hosting, just so that everyone can come back to the sessions and go back to the resources that were shared, the materials, the PPTs from other regions and other speakers that we had in the previous session. So today we're on IPGs week 2, and the third IPG weeks is going to happen sometime in autumn, but we don't have the dates decided yet. So stay tuned. And so to the mirror, and I'm going to share the link because I don't know if someone shared this. This is just to explain how we have organized this. So at the top, you will see that we have the calendars. So we don't have the calendar for week 3, as I was saying, but we have the rest of the sessions for this week. So you can still register if you haven't. We also have in the main part is the sessions content, where we're basically just guiding you through as we do a check-in, the Q&A, and so on. So we'll just ask you to jump into different parts of the mirror board there. And then you have this wall of resources at the bottom, where you can just always go to and share any resources that you have, like any articles, any examples of case studies from other projects you're working on, or like other regions that you know of. So any materials that you feel are relevant, you can just put them there. And at the very, very bottom of the board, it's where we will put the final presentations from today's session, and you will find them available in the Miro. And we're going to keep the Miro alive, so it's not going to be closed at any moment. You can always come back to it. Okay, I think that's it. I'll share the link in a moment, but it's we're moving forward. Yes, so today's IPG is about land use and food systems. And today's session, it's going to be a highlight to Donegal, Ireland. And we have with us Mayret, Mayret, who is a project manager at Seal Ulta, which is a social enterprise based in rural Donegal. And they support over 100 disadvantaged families by providing fresh vegetables, as well as selling to the local shops and restaurants, promoting a short supply chain model that emphasizes low carbon emissions and improves food security for the region. So essentially, they promote regenerative farming and sustainable energy, and they generate employment opportunities for the local community. So Mayret is going to be presenting the case study from Donegal today. And after, when we jump into the plenary discussion with experts, we're going to have Denise, who is a senior program manager on working on the Ireland demonstration program, which is an initiative led by Climate Kick, and where they support the transition of the Irish agri-food sector transformation in light of national climate objectives. Denise has extensive experience working with public and private stakeholders in the agri-food value chain in Ireland and beyond. And her career spans both academia and industry. And today she's going to bring her expertise in, especially on circular bioeconomy and food systems analysis. It's good that we have 2 people who are really related to Ireland. So today it's going to be very focused. And it's good so that you can get a feeling really of the region and how things are, I think, progressing in that local context. Okay, so I think now is the turn of Mayred. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Mayred, so that you can start your presentation.
Sorry. Right.
Yes, we can see it.
You can see my screen there, can you? I think my mouse has gone a bit AWOL on me. Sorry, there we are.
It's okay.
So yeah, I'm Mairead Nicnumara, and I'm Research Innovation and Sustainable Development Project Manager with the Northwest Bioeconomy Hub, and Laura the Achoni Nádara, our Centre for Sustainable Resources in Kilolta in County Donegal. This is just a wee picture of our site. We have 1 acre of a glasshouse and we have 9 polytunnels. At the moment, we have 5 polytunnels because we had a really bad storm a couple of months back. So we're still working on trying to get them up to scratch. But we do a lot of work with the universities locally and in Dublin, which is the capital. So it's nice to be here and be able to showcase what we do in Donegal. I suppose we started out, as you can see on the wee map there, it's a small enough region. It covers 53 kilometres square roughly. We applied with Donegal County Council, which is the local authority here. They had a climate action plan in March 24, and they set out that they were going to increase energy efficiency, they were going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions across their own assets, services and infrastructure. And this was to meet the targets that Donegal County Council had. They were also going to take on a broader role of influence in advocating and facilitating the wider county to meet their own climate targets and ambitions. And I suppose very, very early on in the before P2R started, we looked at with Donegal County Council as us being the location or the proposed location for the Northwest Bioeconomy and a Sustainable Energy Community, which is the community arm of the SEAI, which is the Sustainable Energy Association of Ireland. And what they were doing was they were bringing like different renewable energies to the market. So that was one side of the house, I suppose, in Kilolta, and the other side was looking at soil health. But as part of the climate action plan with Donegal County Council, there was 2 selected areas as decarbonisation zones. So they were planning to decarbonise these and investigate really how they could decarbonise them. And as I say, it came from Lan Funineh or the Sustainable Energy Community. So we have 2 decarbonisation zones in Donegal. One is ourselves and the other one is in Inishowen, which is similar enough region to ourselves as well. So we're a social enterprise. We're located in the decarbonisation zone, as I said, and we're an SEC. We work closely with Donegal County Council on renewable energy and how to demonstrate renewable energy in practice, deliver Meet the Builder workshops and showcase really to the local businesses and community what options are available for them and how they can go down the road of getting their house upgraded to the proper BER standard. We're a Centre for Natural Sustainable Resources, and we work in the bioeconomy space or the circular bioeconomy. And I suppose you couldn't talk really about one without talking about the other because they are really directed, even though they are, you know, and Denise will be able to tell you a bit more about the supply chain. But I suppose for us, when we started, we were it's the organization itself. It opened in the 1960s as a tomato growing industry, and they were supplying tomatoes to the early Dublin markets, which is nearly 400 kilometers away from us. So you can see on the wee map there, we're up at the very, very top, and Dublin is in the very, very middle. So it's not a sustainable model really to be taking tomatoes from Donegal up to the early Dublin markets, but at the same time it was an income that was available in the region at the time, and community was very much involved in that. They really the work that they were doing prior to when I showed you just on the previous slide here, on the first slide, that was all 8 acres of glasshouses back in the 1960s, and these glasshouses were heated by oil. But in 1973, we had an oil crisis in Ireland, and the plug was pulled really on the glasshouses, and the organisation that was there walked out. So they could no longer heat the glasshouses, and it's a very similar story today with the fluctuation in oil prices and fuel prices. And really what we're trying to do is promote more work and more food security for the region. We concentrated a lot on soil health in a couple of projects that we have done over the last 5 to 6 years. So we had an idea of the condition of the soil and the work that had to go into the soil to bring it up to scratch. But the area itself, it's a Gaeltacht region, and we're lucky that we're able to communicate anything that happens at a national level or at a European level, that we're able to communicate that using our own language, Irish, to the local community. And there is quite a lot of people still in this region that wouldn't use English on a daily basis. So it's important that we're able to bring that element of information to them. It's an agricultural and environmental landscape. Donegal is known for its beauty. It's absolutely fantastic landscape up here. I'm originally from Galway, and I thought Galway was beautiful, but I have to say Donegal, it's a different experience driving down to work every day. You know, it's a different scene. This was our maturity curve scorecard that was done as part of the first work package, I suppose, for the regional resilience journey step, and we realised that there was a lot of work to be done. Climate resilience was very low on our target, I suppose. And for Donegal County Council, yes, they had started like all of the county councils or all the local authorities in the region, but at the same time, there was still a lot of work to do, and there was a lot of investigation to be done on what would need to be done in terms of resilience. For us, we looked at the soil health because we had experience in it. We knew that food security was a challenge. We knew that from working with 2 European innovation partnerships in the past, one of them that concentrated on soil health, soil structure and profile. And we also have very good networks with the Irish Bioenergy Association of Ireland. So we had been doing some trials when it came to biochar and how we could use biochar to improve the soil health, how to amend it, because our soil was really, really depleted and abandoned for many, many years. We had 60 acres in this region that we brought into the European Innovation Partnership Programme. And in that 60 acres, the land had been abandoned for maybe 10, 15, 20 years, no growth whatsoever on it, no food being grown on it. And it was a waste of land, and land not being used in the right manner, I suppose. And, you know, it's important that we're able to bring something to the region that is going to add a viable income as well. We're looking at the bottom up kind of approach here in Kilolta, you know, and it's worked. It's worked with 2 European innovation partnerships programs in the past. We have managed to bring the soil up to some level of standard that they're able to grow on it. So they're growing potatoes locally now. They're growing wild garlic. They're growing different leaves. They're actually growing, we have a blueberry farm as well incorporated into that, which is amazing. We understood as well as part of our work with the community that there was a real loss in biodiversity in the region. We're located, and I should have told you at the start, I suppose, that we're located, the site itself is a special protected area. So it's an SPA for the corncrake. That means that we can't use the ground that we're using for the corncrake from April to September. And that works okay too, because we understand that there needs to be a lot of work put into biodiversity and how we can get habitats and protect these habitats. And we do that by ensuring that there's no chemicals, no pesticides, nothing going on that ground. We've nettles in there. They love the nettles, and they're coming back year on year, which is brilliant. One of the challenges as well, I suppose, is that there's a lot of rainfall in Donegal, and Lorraine in Donegal County Council would be more familiar with this as she works with the flooding aspect. But when we were doing the baseline assessment report in the last couple of weeks, we realised, yeah, there has been a lot of floods in Donegal due to rainfall, but it seems to be getting worse and worse every year. We're a coastal region, so the land that's just below the site, it's been ate away every year, year on year, and this is not good for biodiversity. It's not good for a healthy ecosystem, and it's not good for food security. We have beehives on site as well, which is I don't do too much with the bees now, but I do understand the important role that they play when it comes to our food system. They're responsible for every third bite of food that we put in our mouth. And this lack of information at a community level and at a youth level is important, because it's important that we're able to put the message across to them. I suppose the next challenge that we had when we looked at the risks for the region, because we're a coastal area, we understand that coastal and marine ecosystem is important, because we're also connected with the Northwest Bioeconomy Plan, our bioeconomy hub. We understand that coastal and marine is also included in that bioeconomy. It's not just land use. Then we have a biodiversity action plan, which is incorporated as well into the climate action plan for Donegal County Council. We understand that urgent action is needed when it comes to crop production, and that really directs or links directly with food security. Flooding, as I say, because we have a lot of rainfall, is another action that needed urgent attention. And of course, because we're a social enterprise with charitable status, funding is a big challenge for us here as well. Any work that we do, we were lucky that the Pathways to Resilience project was 100% funded, but a lot of the European projects that we've been involved in up until now is 60% funding, which means that we have to come up with the 40% funding. So there's an awful lot of work that needs to be done there. In terms of the food security element, we are growing at the moment on site here potatoes, strawberries, we have blueberries, we have tomatoes as well. We have tomato experts, as a matter of fact, and potato experts. We use natural resources, so we're growing with seaweed fertilizer that's locally produced. We're doing a lot of trials on biochar, because biochar is one of these products that needs to be inoculated. Otherwise, it'll suck all the nutrients out of the soil. And with our work with the Irish Bioenergy Association of Ireland, we have an expert there who works with biochar, and we're associated partners as well in another European project with them. So it gives us great opportunity to be able to learn more about how we can enhance the soil, really. Microbes love the biochar. It's a great home for them, which means that when you have high microbial activity in your soil becomes alive. It's easier to grow food on it, and it's working so far. So the trials that we have done to date have been very successful. With this project, what we wanted to do was look at the soil health in the region, that we'd be able to grow more food, which would make us more sustainable as a region when it came to food security. We understand that 175 million euros worth of food is imported into Ireland every year, which is absolutely crazy when you have land around the region that hasn't even been used. So it's important that we put our focus at the moment on the soil health. But obviously, with Pathways to Resilience, we're looking also at other adaptation measures and how we can deal with the flooding. For example, biochar is also used for that. It's also a carbon sequestration, which means that we're able to sink carbon two ways. We're able to sink it when we're growing the food, and we're also able to sink carbon with the biochar. So it made perfect sense to us. I suppose the other areas then that there was risks when we looked at the risk assessment was when you're ecosystem changes and your biodiversity changes in the region. You have different species coming into the region, and that's not good for your soil, because with different species comes different diseases. And we work a lot with Fiona Doohan, Professor Fiona Doohan in University College Dublin, and she keeps us right when it comes to disease and that on the food that we're growing. Coastal flooding as well, as I mentioned, that's another area that needs attention, and we can do that. We can work on adaptation measures for that as well, with the P2R and the adaptation plans that we're putting in place, because the biochar as well, as I said, it retains water, it soaks up water like a sponge, and that with a good rooting system, I think that we're able to have a really, really good project. This is just a detailed risk of the region. So we see that again, the ones that are standing out there is ecosystems, food, health, infrastructure, economy and finance. And that's especially true for ourselves here in Kilolta. That's just another wee slide on the risk assessment that we done. So we can see that at the moment, our climate risks are coming in extreme weather events. We had an awful lot of damage on site in Kilolta. We have no shelter belter really when it comes to coastal, and that needs attention as well. It's one of the areas that, you know, I don't know exactly what the adaptation measures is, and we need to look at what other regions are doing when it comes to coastal erosion, because it is a real challenge here in Ireland at the moment. Seasonal unpredictability. If you looked out my window here today, it's absolutely lashing the rain. But in an hour's time, I can guarantee you the sun will be shining and the rain will be falling, and that's just the way it is. It's a real four seasons up here. The long-term climate shifts affecting crops and ecosystem, I think it's becoming more obvious. It's not a challenge for us, drought, because we have so much rainfall, but the soil is washed away. It's completely depleted, you know. In Kilolta, when they started here first, they were actually growing out of bags. Now we've been able to build the soil up using a lot of the green waste that farmers are bringing into us. We're using KPM soils to deliver workshops, which are soil experts, and they're absolutely fantastic when it comes to explaining the food web and explaining how it all interlinks in with each other. And we're having workshops with them as well, and getting a Johnson Sioux bioreactor so that we can build microbes, build the soil up, use natural resources. I don't think that we're going to ever be able to shift away completely from chemicals of some sort, but at least we have to try, because the chemicals, basically what you're doing is you're feeding these microbes, and then once the chemical is washed out, the fertilizer, you're starving them, and then your soil dies. And this is what we've been seeing with the European innovation partnerships over the last few years. It's very difficult to find the right balance there, I suppose, is what I'm trying to put across. Nutrient depletion is a big problem when it comes to soil, and without nutrients in your soil, without microbes, you're not going to have healthy food systems, and that's for sure. And that means that your supply chain then becomes a lot bigger. You're importing food that you should be able to grow yourself at a local level. We, at the moment in Kilolta, are supplying over 100 families, disadvantaged families in the region, with this food. We've had with the food that we're growing here at the moment, and we've had really, really good results from that with regards to health, and a lot of very good case studies that we hope to be able to bring to the public, you know, when it comes to disease and health issues like Crohn's disease, heart disease. It's all linked in with our food and how healthy our food is. And you cannot have healthy food, I suppose, without healthy soils. The socioeconomic risks that we see is the supply chain disruption. There's a lack of infrastructure for food resilience in this region, and there's policy and governance gaps, I suppose, when it comes to food, because about 20 years ago, these were mixed enterprise farms that were in this region, which meant that they had cows, they had sheep, they had potatoes, They were using their farms in different ways. Then I suppose with the introduction of single farm enterprises, people moved away from agriculture and moved into either beef or dairy cows or stuck to the sheep farming. And this was one of the challenges that we've seen at a local level here, as well as a lot of people moving away from the area because they weren't able to get a viable income from the land, and that was another challenge for them. This graph, it just demonstrates that the characteristics, the ecosystems are deemed to be medium to short term with regards to urgency for implementation needs, and that is with regards to policy. Food, however, it ranks mostly in the short term, and this indicates that in the policy context, food is critical for policy implementation in the short term. This is why we're very interested in the Northwest bioeconomy, that we're able to have SMEs come in here and they're able to grow and come up with innovation for plant-based foods or products, and that they're able to bring that to the market so that there's not just, one income coming in from food alone, like that there is development there and that it's all linked in with a healthy food system. The supply chain, as I said, it's a big challenge up here. If you have to find a market 400 kilometers away, then you're not helping climate change. You're not helping your area become more sustainable. You're not really doing anything. And at the moment, we find that what we're growing here, there's a high demand for it in the region. So we don't have to go outside of the county. We can supply, and anything that's left over on a weekly basis, we can support the local food bank, which is great. I think that when you look at food security, one of the challenges as well is that social element and being able to access available food and being able to use that food to support families that aren't able to access it, I suppose, and that it is not available to them. Our mission with the P2R, I suppose we were lucky to be selected. First of all, our mission is that we look at bringing a pyrolysis machine to the farms in the region. So the pyrolysis machine is the machine that they use to make the biochar. The green waste that's left on farms at the moment in Ireland, there's a ban on burning that, thankfully. This was something that was happening every year, and we're still seeing it, that farmers are going around and they're gathering up all their green waste from the year. And then when it comes to the dry spell, which is a week in Donegal, when it comes to the dry spell, they light a match to it. Absolutely wipes out the whole area. Like I've seen fires in Donegal, I've seen fires down in Connemara, and it's just crazy that it's a complete wipeout. There's nothing left. The soil is completely degraded. It's a lot of mountainous area, but that has really valuable biodiversity in that area, and I don't think that people realize. Thankfully now the government have introduced a complete ban on burning on their farms. But what do they do with that green waste? Well, we're proposing that they take that green waste to us, or we collect it off them, and we make biochar with it. And we have selected a site in the region to test it to see if this works. There's a lot of on the site itself, there's an awful lot of gorse. So really it's a site that has never grown any food system at all. So the soil is completely depleted in it. There'll be tests done on that beforehand, and there'll be tests done on the soil during and after to see. But what we're hoping to do is take all that green waste, make the biochar, then put the biochar into the ground, inoculate it with natural fertilizers such as comfrey, nettle fertilizer, and seaweed fertilizer. These are really, really good, and we've had trials in the glass houses here and in the tunnels, and we're still conducting trials on potatoes actually this year. We started that last year. We had a bigger yield last year. I think there was 33% of an increase in the yield of the potatoes that we done last year with the biochar. So we're hoping then that we're able to introduce that green waste again turned into biochar, introduce that back into the soil when it's inoculated, and that'll improve the soil, because once the soil is depleted, the pH in the soil goes down, so it becomes very acidic. There's no microbes in it. Hopefully we'll be able to incorporate what we do with the Johnson Su bio reactor composting system, and that'll add microbes to the soil as well, and then we'll be able to use that to grow healthy food, and to be able to demonstrate, I suppose, at a local level, yes, we can become resilient when it comes to food security, and yes, we can support our region. And I think you have to start somewhere. Then with that, hopefully we'll be able to upscale it and scale that out throughout the whole decarbonisation zone, and the other decarbonisation zone might look to us and see that what we're doing is very good practice, and that it's providing a viable income, which means that the local people are staying in the region, which means that the culture and tradition associated with the region is staying. Then I suppose the biochar, once you're growing and you have a good healthy food system in place on your soil, that will increase your biodiversity, but also you'll be sequestering carbon, and you'll be able to soak up a lot of that rainfall that's happening here in Donegal at the moment. Then I suppose our mission with regards to the circular bioeconomy, we want to be moving from the linear economy to a circular bioeconomy, and I think this is best practice really in operation, where you're taking something that would be waste otherwise, you're making your biochar with that. You're using that biochar then to put into your soil. You're using you're improving the soil, and you're building an economic system for the region as well. And you know, it's more regenerative practices that we've been doing over the last couple of years in Killalta, and I suppose we've demonstrated that it works at a small scale, and now bringing that to a bigger scale. And it is one of the steps, I suppose, with our experience working with UCD, when you're before you can bring anything to commercial agriculture in Ireland, you have to try it out at a glasshouse stage first. Then you move to your small field trials. Then you move to your larger field trials, and then you go on to your final step is the commercial agriculture element of it. So as I said earlier, the circular bioeconomy, or the circular economy, it's central to the bioeconomy because it'll minimize that waste and maximize resource efficiency on the farms. We have a small anaerobic digester, which is thankfully working on site. That also creates a natural fertilizer. So we're using a lot of the waste that we have left, food waste in the region, that we're able to use for the anaerobic digester. We feed the anaerobic digester, and that creates a biogas for us as well. So that demonstrates a bit of the circular economy, and that's important really at this level to be able to demonstrate the renewable energy element of it as well. And it will be incorporated into our green transition with Donegal County Council and Údarás na Gaeltachta then as well, P2R hopefully. We had our first communication workshop, and we had Tipperary County Council up from Tipperary, which is the other region that were successful in the Pathways to Resilience project. They're also working in the bioeconomy space, and I think it's great that we have that connection with them and we can learn from each other. And we were delighted to have them up in Donegal, and we actually got good weather for that day, so it was brilliant. This involved a stakeholder mapping session, first of all, I suppose, and looked at experts in the biochar sector and experts in soil. And as well, we had people here from University of Austria who were really interested in the project. We had people from the UK, from carbon capture, who were really interested as well in biochar for that element of carbon sequestration. So what we're doing, I suppose it's great to be able to show that at a national and international level. We have now Accelerate Together on board with us, and they'll be working on the next two workshops, and they'll be bringing in expertise again in that area, and as well community members, because what happens here is the community are very much involved in everything that we do. So they're helping us to deliver the baseline report as well, which is great because we're a small organisation with very little resources, and I know we're fortunate that that Donegal County Council are the lead on it, and we work really, really well together and have done for the last 5 or 6 years, which is brilliant. And we hope to build on that going forwards with different projects. But again, one of the challenges is, I suppose, for this region is that element of food security that we want to make sure that we start there to be able to carry on with other adaptation measures. So stakeholder engagement is one of the major actions in our plan to tackle this challenge. I suppose it's very important for us to be able to bring that information to the public, and the expertise that we are using is the Irish Bioeconomy Association of Ireland, who are expertise in biogas and biochar, as well as KPM Soils, who are really, really good when it comes to soil health. One of the areas that we do need a lot of help in is the investment plan, I suppose, and that'll come probably later on. And then as well as that is informing government policy, bioeconomy, climate and social enterprise, and how we can improve them areas and incorporate that into the project. So that's my presentation, guys, for you. So
Thanks a lot, Mairead. Very, very interesting presentation. I'm going to give the floor to Denise in 1 minute. Just before that, a very quick transition. First, I'm Lorraine. I work for Climate Kick and on agri-food topics, and I contribute to this IPG as also content provider. So based on your presentation, there were a few questions I wanted to ask Denise. First, to say that Denise, as an expert here today, you're invited to ask also questions to Mairead, to the experience of Donegal, and to give feedback based on your experience and your knowledge. So it can be technical input, could be a slightly different or a broader perspective on the topic. If you have any suggestions also of other relevant projects or initiatives to link with, the idea here is that we have kind of a dynamic conversation. And on the topic itself, so Mairead, you touched on a lot of very systemic challenges related to food security, bioeconomy, climate resilience, mitigation, adaptation. So I'd be really interested, Denise, in hearing from you also on these bioeconomy and systems transformation aspects. How a solution like biochar can really be integrated within sustainable agri-food system transformation, on also how food systems resilience challenges are perceived and tackled in Ireland. And as Mairead mentioned, the question of finance, how to finance such initiatives for transition is a very big challenge, I think, across many countries in Europe. So if you have any input on that as well, it's very welcome. Over to you.
I probably remember one question there, Lauren.
That's
that
okay.
Was like 5 minutes of intense questions. I'm not sure where to start, other than
wherever you want, and
yeah,
you can also
let's
ask
start
direct
with
questions.
bioeconomy, because obviously the P2R for Donegal really focuses on bioeconomy and the use of biochar, and really, I guess, behind the decision of how you've approached this is really the issues or the challenges around soil quality in the area, and how the role of biochar as a soil amendment as a way to help improve the quality of the soil, which then leads to better yields from the land, that then leads to better food production, which leads, so it's sort of a virtuous circle. So really starting from the soil makes a lot of sense. I'd say certainly in Ireland, the bioeconomy is really seen as a key pillar to support and develop rural communities, because a lot of the biomass and what we need to do sits in those rural communities. So in addition to the benefits of decarbonization, emissions reduction, it drives economic activity into those local regions. So, I mean, Killalt is a great example where when you listen to the history of where you've come from, to the impact that you're having in the area and across Ireland, actually, because people across Ireland know of Killalt and see it sort of as a as a benchmark for a social enterprise that's, you know, doing interesting things and doing good on the ground. So maybe, Lauren, just one specific question, and we could talk, maybe we talk a little bit more about biochar first. Because I saw even from, I think on the previous one of these workshops that you had, there were questions on there about biochar and its role. And I have to say, I went with the team from Donegal and some colleagues from the Sustainable SEAI Sustainable, come on, Mared, help me out, Energy Association Ireland, to a workshop in Germany, and it kind of blew my mind. All the uses of biochar, literally, because I was coming at this from agriculture point of view, very focused on the benefits to soil and yield. And on so many levels, that one workshop that I went with you guys, and it had nothing to do with you, Mared and Etna and the team, you guys were fantastic, but the insights into how biochar can be used across a whole range of challenges that we face. So not just with agriculture, that is a really important one for soil amendment, improving soil quality. But you have regions and local authorities in different places across Europe that are mixing biochar in to make a carbon negative bitumen that they use on cycle paths or on roads. That is combined with a non-fossil fuel-based alternative to bitumen. But you can make biochar from plastic waste. Okay, you can't spread that on land, that's not allowed, but that can go into the construction sector to make insulation. So the uses of biochar are phenomenal. The challenge there is the biomass. And I know there's a big debate at the moment about, do you grow biomass for AD, for pyrolysis? And again, I think it's a really nice solution that you see in Donegal, where you look into the system and you realize, well, we have invasive species, and we also have this new law in Ireland that farmers, when they're pruning and trimming their hedges and clearing out, that they can't burn. The tradition, typically, the farmers would have burnt that green waste because they saw it as green waste. But now it's a feedstock, and you can use that and make your biochar and circle that back into the same soils and enrich the soil. So I think it's really nice to see that, you know, once you start to think about, well, what is the issues, what are the technologies that could, and what are the biomass that's available, and come up with some really innovative uses for it. Oh, no, so yeah, so I think that their biochar on its own, and I saw from the previous workshop, people were saying it's become very topical. And I think it's just really taken, and I've said it to other people, it's like 2025, everybody's talking about biochar all of a sudden. You know, and I think it has some really good uses and synergies with some other technologies that you see in the bioeconomy space. Anything else? What was any other, or does anybody want to just unmute and ask Mairead and I a question?
Yes, or otherwise, maybe Denise, in your experience, this type of project using biochar and maybe other solutions to address resilience, is that something that you've seen elsewhere in Ireland or in the world? What do you think are the biggest challenges to scale, or do you have any learnings to share also in terms of bioeconomy and climate resilience?
So, I guess, I don't know about the world. And if we talk resilience, certainly, I think the funding and financing of these types of facilities there's a mix of public-private that is a complex thing to figure out, because and it's not just linked to pyrolysis, it's linked to a lot of these types of solutions that traditional investors maybe are less familiar with. So, and also the return on investment might be slightly longer. So often the private investors are looking for public investment as a way to de-risk. So it's really this need to manage complex financing networks that have a mix of public and private to get things off the ground till the point, where they are viable projects on their own. I think the other mistake, and I don't know if it's a mistake, it's just a learning, is that sometimes we jump immediately into saying, oh, let's just produce biochar, or let's just do X. And we haven't really thought through what is the market, what is the demand in the market, because we have to really start, because it's not like, the guy from Ford, he says, if I build it, or, if I build it, people will buy it. Well, that's not the case. Like we have examples where we can produce some stuff, but nobody really is aware about it. What do I use it for? And so the market is not mature enough, and whether policy is ready to create the ecosystem to really promote that. So I think we really need to start with what are we hoping to use this for? What is the market? Who are the off-takers of this particular product? And then you really need that to really build a business case for some of these solutions that we're seeing. So I think we've too often approached this from the R&D. Oh, we found this really cool thing that we can do. We can make biochar. Oh, how do we get people to buy this? What is the business model? What is the cost? What is, so I think that's definitely a challenge. Well, Jana, you asked about, and Mairead, you mentioned it in your presentation about, because the structure of biochar microscopically, it's very porous. It's got all sorts of holes in it, which is why it pulls in nutrients that may be contaminants in the soil, but it also, if you don't inoculate it, as Mairead said, like pre-soak it and you put it in soil, instead of helping for the first year or two, it actually is just pulling in the nutrients.
Yeah.
So you do have to manage it, but with respect, it does the exact same thing with water. And again, there was an example from an area in France where they were looking in, I think it was Rennes. They were looking to mix biochar, where you plant trees and stuff in cities, to mix biochar into that, also to create like drains, special drains that have layers of biochar to pull water away. So when you get flooding, it just pulls it in, and it holds it in, and then it can slow release it into the soil. So there are things that you're seeing, certainly in cities in Europe, where they're designing biochar into some of the solutions in the city, like in the pavements and in the drain system, to really hold water to stop it causing more flooding. Obviously, if you have a massive event, I guess no amount of biochar is going to hold all of that, but over time it can just help. And then what it does then is then the water is held there, so it slowly again gets used by plants.
So Denise, here you were addressing the question from Boyana in the chat. Can biochar be used to fight drought in agricultural areas? What I understand is that the answer is yes. In a way, it can be used both to retain the water and make it available to plants when you need it, right?
Yeah. I would like to throw something out, because you talked about it, Mairead, about coastal erosion and the impact that it's having, and what are solutions. And okay, not everybody knows me, but I grew up in a tropical country where we have a lot of mangroves, and we see in tropical countries the replanting of mangroves as a buffer zone that helps reduce coastal erosion, because the mangroves buffer both for flooding and also for coastal erosion. And I was just trying to think in this type of climate, what is the parallel? Is it seaweed? Is it seagrass? Are there, and I don't know, I'm kind of asking the group here, because I'm sure you all have a lot of expertise as well in here. Are there solutions that you think are useful for in coastal areas that are really experiencing that coastal erosion? What is the equivalent of a mangrove here in this region? Is it planting seaweed? Is it seagrass? What are your thoughts?
I'm just thinking out loud here, Denise, but
Yeah.
I think maybe like we've looked as well at reed beds as so this might be a solution. In terms of marketing this, I have we're at the moment we're very under-resourced for somebody to do marketing and communication, and we're in the trial stage when it comes to the trials that we're doing on biochar and potatoes and the benefits of that. We've also trials on the tomato plants, but one of the products that we were looking at through our involvement with a European project, it was Cascade prior to this project, which is 3C, but one of them is this one here that we've looked at, and it's called Unlas Gloss. So it's natural. My screen is blurred, so I'm just going to change that. So it's actually comfrey nettle and biochar, and it's mixed already. And this is the kind of product that we want to be bringing out to the market, so that people, what we do, we demonstrate it here first, I think, and how we can become resilient when it comes to food security. And then we offer this as a product to other regions. The green waste and food feedstock is going to be a massive challenge, because you need a mixture of feedstock as well. But we have to try it, and I suppose we've been fortunate with the P2R project that we're able to have a pyrolysis machine. Now we have a Kentucky, but it doesn't make biochar on the scale that we'd want to be doing it for the project, and to make a region resilient and incorporating biochar. So it's great to be able to bring that and to demonstrate to people. Yes, it has loads of uses. It's carbon sequestration. It's also it also takes nutrients, bad nutrients out of water, which means that you have a cleaner water system. It's a great rooting system. It's a home for microbes. It's a sanitization product for bedding, for animal bedding. And it sucks up any urine from, I know that there was a project in Germany as well that we looked at last year, and they were using it in chicken bedding. So it was soaking up the ammonia, and ammonia is a problem as well when it comes to soil health, I suppose, in Ireland. But like, it soaked up everything and sanitized the bedding, which meant that the chickens were healthier, because there was no ticks, there was no lice or anything getting in there, or any bad bugs that were causing diseases. So it's a really, really good product, but a product that needs a lot of investigation and a lot of research as well, at the same time learning from other regions.
Thank you both. There is another question in the chat from Hakan about how could you calculate the possible revenue loss of the crops because of the risk? So I think maybe first to Mary, to ask you, if you are at Donegal County Council, if you've made any assessment of these potential losses and how you did it.
Well, we're looking at it at a national level when it comes to the amount of food that we're importing. I think that's how we're calculating it. Like, there's 175 million worth of food being imported into Ireland every year, which is crazy.
There's more than that, Mairead.
Yeah,
I think the Irish agri-food sector is quite unique in that the majority of what is produced in Ireland is not consumed in Ireland. So the majority, I think, like 12 or 14 or 15 billion, I forget what, is produced and it's exported. And you have almost the exact same value of food that is imported. So now we could go into a long debate about what is food security and what is food resilience. But the reality is, a lot of the Irish agriculture, and yes, there are some products that are produced and go into the local market, but the majority of the outputs from agriculture in Ireland are exported. And it's an agriculture system dominated by beef and dairy. Yeah. So it's quite unique in its own, and that brings with it several challenges, because we know the system revolves around livestock, which we know come with really big challenges around emissions and soil and water quality. And when I mentioned nutrient management, it's this, leaching into the water courses that, that cause a lot of issues. So, so I think food security, food resilience, it's something, it's worth a whole discussion around it, because it's one of those things. It's very simple to say, oh, we should just only have local supply chains, but then that doesn't make sense either. It's always going to be a mix, a hybrid solution where you have different things happening to really meet the needs, you know, the nutritional needs and the things that, you know, consumers now expect. Yeah, that's another big discussion. But yeah, so yeah, that's a bit of a challenge there.
Thanks a lot to you both. I think now we already had a few questions in the chat, but we can open to peer discussions. And I want to ask our participants today if you have any questions to either Merit or Denise, or you want to share some feedback from your experience, you can just raise your hand, unmute yourself, and ask your question. We really invite you also to share your experience, and we wanted to ask you if you've also tried biochar projects in your region, if you had similar challenges. Merit mentioned a few risks facing the region, but if you have similar challenges, how are you tackling them? What are you trying out? What are you testing? And do you have any learnings to share with the group today? But also, if you're not trying the same thing, why and what are the potential barriers that you see on that? So really, over to you for questions and feedback here. And also, of course, if there is something from the presentations and discussion that you want more information on, please also don't hesitate to ask. So I know a few of you mentioned in the opening that you had challenges with drought, and we said earlier that biochar potentially could be used in that context. So is that something that any of you has tried or is thinking about trying? And if not, why? Really open question.
I think a nice, and I've seen it predominantly applied in African countries, you know, the smile, I think they call it the smile, where they dig a pit. It's sort of in the shape of a smile. And multiple, you know, in areas that have been almost become like deserts. It's part of the Green Belt, I think, initiative, and it's digging these pits, and it's deeper at one end, and it tends to hold in moisture. And you see after a couple of years, it gets very green. And again, the thing with drought is that once the land gets so dry and it's exposed, then you get soil erosion and then soil quality. So it becomes this vicious cycle because then it's hard to grow things. So it's really, and I'm guessing we go from drought to floods very quickly in some areas that, you know, from 1 month or 1 week to the next, we may have very torrential rain that floods, and then all of a sudden we're in a drought scenario. So, so it's, I guess, and I'm interested to know what some of the participants, you know, for the regions that they're in. And I see there's someone online from Greece. I mean, you historically have had a lot of issues with droughts and with bushfires and things like that. Can you maybe unmute and just share with us what the Greek sort of government does to try and mitigate some of that risk? Oh, maybe they've left.
Hello.
Ah! Hi, Barbara.
Hi, I am Barbara Siguni from region of Western Greece. There are some plans to mitigate these risks, but for the moment, there are no actions concerning the biochar. There is not, actually, there is not an active project on biochar for the moment.
But not even just biochar. Are you doing other things?
The problem is here that we have many people which who do what they do by their own. The actions are not central. They are not taken by the government, and this is a big issue because also we have atmospheric issues by all these fires that the small plants do.
Yeah.
So at the moment, we try to take some actions, but they are at their early stage.
So I think that's really interesting what you say there about the lack of collaboration, because the reality is the challenges that we have are so big, and they cross boundaries. They don't just stay, oh, I'm only going to impact the guys in Donegal. It actually crosses the boundaries. And so you really need to collaborate. One thing we are doing a lot in Ireland, and it's part of the heritage in Ireland, is there's a very strong cooperative movement, let's call it that, since more than 100 years, yeah? And very closely linked with rural areas, with the agri-food sector, but not just the agri-food. They have cooperatives, energy cooperatives, they have lots of different types of cooperatives. And that is all about, working together for a mutual benefit. Okay, some of the co-ops are obviously competing because they have multiple co-ops, let's say, in the same subsector. But the concept of cooperatives and the collaboration behind it is really embedded, I think, very much in the Irish culture and heritage. And so we are working, and by we, I mean Climate Kick, we work quite closely with the Irish Cooperative Organization Society. And we're looking at actually trying to proactively, because some of these things even need to cross different sectors, to make something a viable business solution. You can't just say, well, we're only going to use this type of biomass, or we're only going to work with these types of businesses. Often you have to take a much broader approach. So again, looking at the cooperative structures and that type of network that exists in Ireland is hopefully going to be really beneficial in helping us to work across different organizational groups. And I think, again, one other thing, and we've had meetings as well with different local authorities and regional assemblies in Ireland, is this idea of how do you go from, like, who is responsible? You go from EU, regulations, national, regional, local. And at some point, the message and who is responsible for what can get a bit lost in that, and that it can slow down the implementation. So we need to get better as well, I think, in really focusing on strategically at a country, national, local, regional level, and you see it in the climate action plans, what are the big challenges, the big risks that we have, what are the mitigations, how do we work together to actually do that, and who owns what, who is responsible for different parts of the solution, so that we can actually get things moving, because that often it slows stuff down, moving up and down, if you like, the different regulatory levels. And I don't know, it sounds like that's similar in Greece. In Ireland, certainly it's a very centralized government that makes decisions, but there's a lot of stuff that is implemented or decided on at a local level. And those things are not always very well aligned, which can slow things down.
Excuse me. Yes, exactly. Actually, here in Greece, the problem is that the farms are small, and each farmer tries to act individually. And in order to get a more centralized and more integrated solution, we have to contact the agricultural cooperatives usually. And also, one problem is that the cost for the transport of biomass and the production of biochar usually is not balanced. So we try to get some fund in order to pass then to the agricultural cooperatives, and these are the organizations who will contact the farmers. And this is a problem that must be solved, but it's a little bit complex.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, to be fair, Bavara, if all of this was easy, we'd have done it a long time ago, right? But again, and maybe there are real parallels, and it could be worth your while speaking with, because in Ireland, the farms typically are very small. They're not massive. They're not like the farms in Germany or
Yes, I can imagine.
in France. The farms are still predominantly family-owned farms and can be quite small. And Mared talked about it, that they have a Clontarf, what's it called again? A Clontarf biochar. And you said it, Mared. Yeah, but it's too small. We don't get the scale that we need. Once now there is a solution where farmers can do things on their farms.
Yeah.
But really, to get the scale, that's where you have to go up and say, okay, because some of these facilities, you say, oh yeah, we can have do these, but they require, so you know, I went to a farm, if you could call it a farm, a year ago with a group of people from Ireland in Denmark. And this guy had an AD plant, but he had hired 30-something people to run it. I mean, it was massive. He had wind farm. I mean, the man called himself a farmer, but it didn't look like any farm that I've ever seen in Ireland, just the sheer scale of it, you know? So something like that, you can't underestimate the complexity of actually building up, running and maintaining a facility like that at a farm level if you have small farms, yeah? So the solution has to, so that's where your cooperative groups can start to say, okay, this, to be honest, it's pre-competitive. We're not, if I'm a farmer, I'm not competing on how do I use my slurry, or how do I use, you know, I could sell my bio. It's not where we're competing, but it's the solutions that use those feedstocks, take those things, help us decarbonize, help us reduce emissions, help us to valorize, that can create, you know, additional income streams for some of the farmers. But it's not where they're competing. So there's nothing really preventing them collaborating, working through some of those cooperative structures at a higher level to, you know, benefit a network, as opposed to just thinking, well, I need to do this. You know, it's where you need something that lifts the discussion up and tries to enable that development at a level that makes sense, that actually is scalable, that, you know, you can really have an impact on our emissions reduction, you know, as opposed to small scale on farms. So again, you can have a balance of the two, but you do need that higher level. What I mean?
Yeah. We'll take a last question
agree
from
with you.
Oscar, and then I'll hand over back to Sylvia and Paloma.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Denise, and thank you, Merit, for the presentation. Very happy to see concrete applications of biochar. I have one question, one comment or invitation is like, and this is open for all the participants as well, like we are updating the P2R catalog of adaptation options, solutions, innovative solutions, and maybe Merit, if you allow us later on to approach you to contact you, because I think it is a very interesting solution that we can showcase in the updated version of this catalog.
Yeah, great.
We will be happy to. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Ross.
And regarding now that they're talking about adoption from a food systems perspective, or land use perspective, I'm curious how the intervention, how the your approach, especially among smallholders or more traditional farmers, is what support mechanisms or policies are envisioned to encourage the uptake of the biochar facilities? What are the economic incentives or behavioral incentives that it's right now in Ireland?
Yeah. Well, I'll jump in there because we have experience working with 60 farmers in the region. That's a lot of farmers in this region. And again, I agree with Varvara there when she was saying it's very small holdings. This was one of the challenges that we had when it came to the European Innovation Partnership Programme. We had to source equipment that first of all would go in the farm gate, and secondly wouldn't have compaction on the soil. So heavy machinery has destroyed our soil. We understand this, and that intensive agriculture idea. And I think it didn't help when they moved from mixed enterprise to single enterprise, but they're moving back, I think, slowly to mixed enterprise. Number one is these guys own the land. So you need to have them on board. That means you have a very good communication system with your farming network in the region. And when they trust you with the project, like they have done with ourselves through the 2 European Innovation Partnership, they've seen land go from overgrown, gorse, destroyed, depleted, to something that's viable now that they're able to grow in. And that makes a huge, huge difference. When you can build a relationship with the farming community in the region and the community in general, they talk, they meet down the pub and they have a chat to each other, and they say, well, I like what they're doing up there. I wonder will we go up there. We have farmers coming to us after we finished our European Innovation Partnership last year. We had farmers coming to us, what's next? They just couldn't wait to get started. So they will adapt and they will change if they can see that there's a viable income there, and if they can see that, yes, they're doing good as well at the same time. These guys are really interested in how they can help. They know too rightly, it's not just us that are working in this kind of area that see the threats. These guys are seeing it firsthand as well. Like, you know, they've had a lot of damage done in the last couple of months around Ireland with the storms. So they know and they understand as well that food, it has to start at home. Like, it really is from the farm to the table. It doesn't stop at the gate. You know, it is really from the farm to the table. And my experience with them, and it's very hard to get farmers who are very connected to their land and they love their land in Ireland. You know, it's very hard to get that trust element, but thankfully we're fortunate that we have that, you know, and we're able to, and I think the cooperative system as well, Denise, really links in with that. You know, if farmers, especially for islands, you know, I see a lot of co-ops off the islands of Donegal, and they're struggling as well, like, you know, but they're not getting as much support, I suppose, as what they should be getting, really, like, you know. A lot of the research.
Add to that, and I know the focus here, we talked a lot about biochar, but it's much broader than that, Oscar. It's not biochar, it's just one possible solution. And what Mairead, and I mentioned it with the cooperatives, I mean, it was back in the early 1900s, and it was at the time of the revival period. And the culture, and we've realized this from some other work that we're doing, you need to figure out exactly what Mairead said. You have to go, and you can't just make a nice spreadsheet or a PowerPoint and email that out to farmers and expect them to engage. You have to be on the ground. You have to be talking with them. They have to trust you, you know, and then key thing is you get a few who buy in and let you test it. And then, like you said, everybody's in the pub or they're walking down the farm and say, well, how did you do that then? I'm sure they're grand. Yeah, that's good. And then you start to build momentum. It's how do you speed that up? Because, I mean, as a social network, you know, you really need to really take those excellent examples and somehow really share that very broadly and, you know, organize farm walks and things like that, because you're right, farmers are business people. When they see something on someone else's farm that is working and increasing their yield and reducing, you know, improving their soil health and all those things, they're going to want to do it. So it's really but it's something that takes time. You can't just, you can incentivize, the government can also incentivize, you know, you have these sticks and your carrots and things like that you can help incentivize. But in Ireland, there are many examples where there were huge incentives to do some things and very few people took it up. So like that's the afforestation, like they thought farmers would be jumping at that. And very few people took this huge chunk. No, we don't want to do that. You know, so the communication and how you connect with those groups on the ground is absolutely central to success, because it's not just top down. It has to, communication has to be a bit handled differently. And we need the people like Mared and her colleagues, Etna, to go out there and talk to the farmers for us. We're going to put you on a bus, Mared, and drive you around Dublin and all of Ireland.
I think that's a very good conclusion and takeaway for this discussion today. So thank you all, and I hand over to Paloma now.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Myred. I think totally agreeing with Denise, and it was a really interesting presentation. I've seen already some comments in the chat, so really thank you for your contribution today, and to Denise and the rest of our partners and colleagues, just on every input. And for you to participate in today's session, I'm just going to launch a poll here, because we are asking you to fill in this at the end of each IPG session, just to give us a little bit of feedback on the format, as we're testing something new for this round of IPGs, and it would be really helpful for us to really know, like, how are you feeling with this type of sessions? Can someone confirm that you see this on the screen right now popping up?
Yes, it's there, yeah.
Great. So please do fill it in. I'm going to stay here for a couple of minutes so that I make sure that you do it. Denise is saying always happy to chat, so maybe you can reach out to Denise as well. And thank you for joining us today, and please join us for the upcoming sessions that we have. We have this afternoon one on behavioral change and empowerment. I've shared the link to the IPG's website in the chat so that you can see the full calendar of the sessions that we have until Friday, and specifically about today's registration link, so that you can directly click on that one. You also have this in the P2R capacity building Trello boards, where we are also updating agendas every day. This is for our P2R regions, of course, but the ones that are outside, then you'll have to just check on the website, unfortunately. But I'm sending the agendas every day if you register. So hopefully that's useful. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, everyone, and have a lovely afternoon.